Start again. Thank you once again for joining us for this final conference in the FASA project. The last item on the program today is a panel discussion on problematic substance use and its links to violence and trauma. And I want to welcome up Akis, who is going to moderate the session. Do you want me to say the full name?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I will give the podium to you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everybody. Sadly, I have to accept that this panel brings us to the end of the project. I don't know if you got that, but we're nearly in the end. So I have mixed feelings. I'm very privileged and very happy to moderate this panel with three very interesting topics and professionals. Let me present the speakers of this panel. We'll start with Kristín Pálsdóttir. Got that? Good. Kristín is the spokesman for the ROOT, the Association for Women's Welfare, and she will speak about the ROOT, how it came about, and the needs of women dealing with substance use issues as they see it within the service. We'll continue with Halldóra Guðmundsdóttir. Sorry. Yeah. Close? It was closed, okay. Halldóra is the head of Konukot, a shelter for homeless women, and she will tell us about the service, the Konukot, the work they've been doing there, and especially how violence, in particular with to intimate relationships, is connected with the challenges faced by the women who use the services. And then the floor will be for Soffía Ólafsdóttir. Soffía works for the city of Reykjavík. Oops. And she's the current head of the department responsible for services for homeless people with complex service needs, including project management for the outreach team. So the floor is yours, Kristín, and I will suggest that we have 10 minutes each for your presentations, and at the end we may open the discussion among us or anyone who wants to participate. So, Kristín, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. You might let me know when the time is.
Okay, sure.
I don't have any clock or anything.
I'll make some signs.
Yes, hi. Nice to be here with you, and I've been here all day, and listening about the FASA project, which is, I found it exciting that you are doing these online courses. That's really, that will be very useful. Yes, I'm here as the spokeswoman of the ROOT, which is an organization that in the beginning had the name the ROOT Association on Women and Substance Use. We've changed the name 2 times since the beginning, and now the name is, as Aki said, the ROOT Association on Women's Welfare, and this is maybe in line with just not focusing on the substance or the trauma, but on the woman. That these women, they have multiple challenges in their lives, and so we are maybe taking the focus a little bit from the ways they deal with this trauma and difficulties, and putting it on their welfare. We know that women who use substances, also many of them have different mental health challenges and histories of violence, long histories of violence often. So that's why we keep changing the name as our focus changes a little bit or develops rather. And we were founded in 9 years ago on the International Women's Day in 2013, and before that we worked. We tried to work within the National Center of Addiction Medicine, which is the dominating service provider for people with addiction in Iceland. Our ideas were not so welcome there, so we were there for a year, and we had some lectures and events, and then we just decided to make our own association where we had total control of the agenda. And the reason why we founded the Root is that most of the women who founded the Root, they came out of the recovery society, if you can say so. Many of them had been active in the 12 Steps movement, and it was maybe the middle class alcoholic women, more kind of an association, and of course we were also criticized for having education and things like that. There is a strong anti-intellectual strike within the recovery movement, so an educated woman is it's not such a positive thing. And we in Iceland, the treatment system in Iceland and the services for people with substance use, it's have been copied from the US with a very strong focus on addiction as a disease and as with spiritual solutions to the disease, aka the 12-step model, or the Minnesota model as it's called. So we had this and still have this. Most people who have treatment, they go in treatment in this. In the SAA, or the National Center of Addiction Medicine, which still has the same format. You go into rehab for 10 days, and then you have aftercare for 28 days and some follow-up. And at the time the Root was founded, they were very, very medically focused. And this has changed a bit, but not enough in our view. So if a woman came into treatment and started talking about their history of violence, they would get the answer that this was not the right place to talk about that. And first they would have to be sober, and then they could work with other things like trauma. We know that this is not true. We know that you can start working with trauma and then go into. We know that trauma treatment works for people with substance abuse problems, but substance abuse treatment doesn't work for trauma. and the right time to work with trauma is when somebody wants to work with it, not when a professional decides they want to work with it. So this is what we found out in research on trauma and substance use. Also, there was a huge problem that the only detox center available, and which is actually still the only detox center available, is co-ed. It's both for men and women. They have responded to criticism, and there is more gender segregated spaces, but it's very unsettling for many women to go into such a place, and Iceland is a small place, and it's a small community. If you belong to a community of problematic substance use, it's very likely that you know a lot of the people who are there, and there are. We get calls. I got a call 2 days ago from a woman. I can't go in there. What can I do? And there is no other place to go. And one of the problems is also that there is a great lack of outreach program. It's all the treatment is it's in-house treatment. You have to go and stay there for a month, or you have to be how do you say inpatient? Yeah, inpatient. Yeah, inpatient. Yes. Thank you, Ajis. Of course. Yeah, inpatient. Yeah. And so most of the treatment is inpatient treatment, and that's also research has shown that that's more difficult for women. They are responsible for the kids. They don't have somebody to take care of the kids while they go into a treatment. They don't like. There is a lack of security because it's co-ed treatment. And also there is a lack of knowledge in the treatment center of women's special problems. And we know that there is, in general, I mean, it's only in the maybe 10 years that some important work on women with substance abuse has been emerging in Europe with initiatives like the Dawn initiative in 2016 and so on, that's working on making guidelines and so on for women's treatment. So it's what and I mean in the 90s there was no, I mean, women had to go to treatment that was made for men, and there was this is what Elisabeth Torre, a sociologist who researched women's substance use for decades, she calls this the epidemiologies of ignorance, that the treatment is built up without any knowledge of the subject. So that's we really know that problem in Iceland, that there's this very monopolized treatment and male-oriented. Okay, hvað mikill tími? Okay. So yeah. So and there is also this problem of I mean, treatment for, there is still this strong bond between spiritual, ideological problems within the treatment system, and where you have a treatment system that is strongly related to the AA or 12-step movement, there is a very ideological power that you have to submit to in this system, which can be really harmful for those, for example, who are not religious or things like that. So I think I just started talking. It can be.
No, it's the best part.
Well, I just want to say that there is also a problem with education. Most of the people working in the substance use field, they have this in-house education at our biggest treatment center, which has no formal curriculum, no formal curriculum. It's an in-house curriculum, and it's basically the institutionalized sponsor. And these people, they have great power over people in treatment, but very little education. And since I understand that my time is over, although I have a lot of more interesting things to say, I just want to end with this picture from a project that is called the Power Threat Meaning. Power Threat Meaning project, and it shows this is the maybe the problem, and this the swift we are living is from asking people what's wrong with you, and asking what happened to you. Looking at people's narratives and the power threat meaning framework, which is a very interesting framework from a British psychologist denying the DSM-5 ideology and focusing on what power is at work in your life. And I think that when you look at the substance field, the word power is so important. Because we are also talking about these groups that don't have so much power in their lives, and a lot of institutions as people who want to rule over them and what they do. So this is the story. What threat was affecting you? And what sense did you make of the threat? Did you feel excluded or worthless? What were your response? For example, to learn to self-harm and to cope with your feelings. And what strengths did you have? What access to power resources do you have? Solidarity skills, social support. And this is this is the story that ties all this together. And in this, in the Power Threat Meaning framework, there's a great emphasis on power. How is or was power operating in your life? And these are the types of powers they talk about: relational, ideological, social capital, legal power, coercive, bodily, and economic. And there is a special focus on the ideological power. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kristín, very much. It was really powerful, and the finishing with the ending of your speech was really powerful. Thank you for that. I know you needed much more time to develop all these ideas. It was Ellen's idea to cut you off. Okay. I picked up a few things really I mean, everything was interesting what you said. It seems that your organization faces multiple challenges at the moment, adapting to women's needs, the changing needs. It's one big challenge, I think. The shifting from the medical model to a more person-centered model is another, I think, challenge that you may face, and I think you're dealing very well with this. It struck me what you said about the that the old idea was that we first deal with abuse and then with trauma, and you try to change that and to go with the flow and go with the women's needs. And this reminds me of the what in UK came across. I don't know if the friends from there are aware of the work of Mick Cooper and John MacLeod. They developed a whole approach in relation to this, the pluralistic counseling, which means that the modality, the therapeutic modality, is mutually agreed between counselors or professionals and clients, and what we're doing is not decided by the professionals, but it's agreed according to the client's needs, what they need at the right moment. So it's quite simple. There's a very interesting book which I suggest. Anyway, I'm not taking any more time. I'll pass the floor to Halldóra, and she'll talk about the Konukot and their work there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Halldóra, and I am the director of Konukot. For those of you who don't know, Konukot is a shelter for homeless women over the age of 18. It's open from 5 p.m. till 10 a.m. all year round. Konukot provides shelter, food and clothing so they can meet their basic needs. And we focus on harm reduction and trauma-informed approach and services. Most women who seek shelter in Konukot have complex problems, mental health problems, substance use problems, and they all have in common that they have a long and repeated trauma history. Homeless women are about 30% of homeless people in Iceland. There were 99 women that stayed in Konukot 2021, an average of 9 women per night. But these numbers don't necessarily portray an accurate image because homelessness amongst women is often very hidden. They remain in dangerous environments and violent relationships to survive their housing instabilities. Therefore, they are unlikely to seek shelters and other specific services. There are multiple ways that violence leads to homelessness for women. It's always within a larger context of poverty, neglect, loss, drugs, alcohol, and illness. Yes, the ways that violence was a major cause of the women's eventual homelessness is often, if not always, linked to the effects of child abuse and violent adult relationships. Majority of homeless women recall physical or sexual abuse, and all were neglected or emotionally abused in some way. The effects of this abuse are far-reaching, setting them up for social, emotional, and behavioral deficits. And many of the girls who become homeless, adult women, have a very warped sense of what normal relationship with men. How normal relationship with men is supposed to be. They are exposed, being homeless, to potential offenders and ongoing violence, as it's hard for them to have a safe place to stay. Homeless women also rarely report the abuse, because when they do, they get very limited responses and help, because they lack access to legal and mental health services and medical services because of stigmatization and their drug use problems. They also find it difficult to trust the system because it has failed to serve them in the past repeatedly, and reporting the abuse can often have dangerous consequences in this world that has its own justice system. Ja. Takk.
Thank you very much, Halldóra. I mean, okay, this could maybe have been a brief presentation, but already Halldóra, I think, put some very interesting points for discussion. What I picked up is the repeated trauma history of these girls, women. I didn't. Maybe you can explain that later. I mean, the mean age of people that you're working.
I have statistics here.
Oh, you have? Great.
Yeah.
Great.
If you want me to.
Yeah, just mentioning them, but because you mentioned girls, I suppose they were youths or later early adults, but yeah.
I was talking about when. In context of the child abuse that later in life.
Okay.
But most of the women are ages 20 to 50 that seek shelter in Konukot.
So the age was
20 to 50.
20 to 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And the other point that Halldóra mentioned was the difficulty in accessing the mental health services, which is a very interesting topic. And I'm aware that there are programs now and proposals in the. Was that me? How did I do that? Okay. There are programs focusing on this issue per se, the difficulties of women, of people in accessing mental health services. Lack of trust, stigma. There are factors that prevent them to access and receive appropriate treatment and services, which is really interesting. We may discuss that later. And thank you very much again, Halldóra. And let's go to Soffía. Still in the same topic, homelessness and homeless women. And we will open the discussion later. Thank you.
Okay, hi, and thank you for inviting me. This is so nice to be here with you. So, I'm talking on behalf of Reykjavík municipality, and I first wanted to start by describing what we are doing in Reykjavík. We have been through some shift changes in the recent years regarding the homeless sector, and maybe we were starting to acknowledge that this was something that we needed to work with, and the acknowledgement is the first step. We're in our first 2-3 steps or something, but we're on our way, and we're not gonna turn back. As was told earlier, I'm currently a head of department of the homeless department in Reykjavík municipality. And under the Department of it's called Homeless with many and complex needs. And that maybe describes the service needs for our group, that there are so many individuals with many complex needs. Under the Department of Homeless with Complex Needs are 2 night shelters for men, an ICM outreach team for the homeless. It's called VoR-teymi, and there are people working on the field, meeting off with people experiencing homelessness who are using shelters, and also people who are in housing first facilities. So we're both doing the service on the field and in housing. And that is something that is really important to do, because homelessness is something that you carry with you. You can not only provide housing, you still are experiencing the homelessness experience. So then we have 2 housing facilities for people that have experienced homelessness. A CAA of one of these housing facilities here today. So, and 1 for women and 1 for men. So, and then there is, Reykjavík is having funding this support to Konukot, and we meet up and are in a cooperation regarding we meet up once a week. So we are in a cooperation. And then we have the Housing First that I mentioned, that the ICM team is also providing services. Inside all of these facilities and shelters, we are using the ideology of harm reduction. That is our holistic approach through this department. And that was a major step into the future for I think, Iceland, because we made the decision that we are going to work under the influences of harm reduction. That is a holistic and human rights approach to people who use drugs. Then we are also using the ideology of the recovery model that allows people to define their own recovery, not regarding their mental or their medical status. You can define your own recovery. And then the ideology of independent life that we use in our housing, that you're just you're a professional in your own life, and the staff and all, including the staff, we have to meet those standards that you want to go. And also we have inlet the trauma-informed practice. So that is like the main ideology that we have under the homeless department. Of course, there is a touch in many other departments. We have a department of disability and immigrants and asylum seekers, and of course we have a cooperation with all those departments, because it's always difficult to put someone in boxes, but we're trying to get our professional approaches to the users. Other thing that we have been doing in Reykjavík, there was a violence prevention committee that was put out, and they put out an action plan for 2022 to 2024, I think. And one of the projects is to gain more information about people experiencing homelessness regarding domestic abuse. And the main goal for that is to see what can we do better in the sector. Because, as probably was mentioned earlier, the access to women's shelter, the access to is denied because of your social status regarding your need to use substances and further. Then we have this program, Together Against Violence. Have that been spoken on today? I'm so sorry, I couldn't be. Okay. Together Against Violence is a project through the.
Yeah, Ragnar spoke a little bit about
okay, Ragnar okay, she opened about it. Yeah. But Reykjavík is a part of the project through the social services and child protection in a cooperation with the police. And when a domestic abuse is reported, a social worker and a child protection counselor, amongst with the police officers, turn out to the scene. And followed up with a phone call the next day by a social worker, and then a visit by the police and the social worker within a week. So we're trying to get a holistic approach. What can we do? What can we do to meet your needs? To meet your needs. The thing about this is the domestic abuse is defined as abuse between two partners with strong relations. There's nowhere in those rules that it's mentioned there has to be a roof. It's just the connection between the people. So we're trying to push the system to acknowledge that the domestic abuse is also in the homeless sector. And the use of substances does not deny the need for the same protocol that goes on for this. And we're getting there. We're getting there through cooperation, and everyone wants to do much better. They're just trying to find a way to do better. And therefore we are sometimes gaining information during counseling and trying to prevent those boundaries. What can we do to make you understand that this is doable? And we will be there for you as well. the thing that we're also doing, because we're talking about staff, we had to think about how can we, because it's a difficult scene for staff to work in, and we have to acknowledge that as well. You experience a lot of trauma, you experience a lot of pain during your shift per day, and therefore we need to gain access to information through counseling, allow people to seek professional counseling that we pay for, and we want to keep our people, because our human resources are our most valuable thing that we have, because our people working at the Department of the Homeless Sector is just, wow, they're important. They're so good in their job, and most of them are strictly overqualified. So, but they work with a passion. We are trying to build bridges. We are working in a municipality, and we need more hands on deck, because when you have a user that has a complex needs, you have to answer it with a complex support system. And therefore we need the hospitals, we need the police, we need the third sector. We need all to work together to find out what is this user needs, and how can we service them better. And this is happening. We are in a talk, and we are like thinking about how can we do this. It takes a time to, and of course we're using another ideology, as I told you before. We're using like the recovery model inside the housing facilities in Reykjavík, and then we're working with the medical system inside of the hospitals, and we have to meet. And there is no, we can't do that, but we just have to have like a discussion, where can we land? So we're trying to do that. The legislation, I know it's a big deal, but that's not helping us always. There's been a big discussion in Iceland about the decriminalizations of private doses, personal uses, and this is a big thing for our users, that this will go through, because we are experiencing people that are not calling the police because they're frightened to lose their substances. And so legislation is one. The legislation is also regarding the domestic abuse and abuse. We're talking about women here. That dependency that you have regarding to the relations. If someone is abuser and he is also your provider, what are you going to do? Are you going to go further with it and lose this one, or are you going to step back? So that's a real choice that people have to take, and sometimes there is no choice. And there we have to, because also we want to, of course, we want to let them have the right to choose themselves what they want to do in the judicial system. But sometimes it's really difficult for us to see something happening, not having anything to say about it, where it goes regarding to police or something. But we understand that this is really difficult for people to be set in this position. So there becomes like this circle of violence and circles of abuse. And there we're trying to find a way to somehow find a way to encourage people, to empower people to see the purpose of going to the judicial system. Because what we have to acknowledge as well, that their trust on the system is sometimes none. Because the system, you have gone through 50 social workers, you have gone through 50 times to the medical clinic and have denied, cannot have a health system services. So we are acknowledging that. We're saying, I hear what you say. I hear that you are disappointed. What can we do to make it better now? And we have to acknowledge that it takes time to build trust. Sometimes it has been a mistrust from 3 years old that we have to rebuild in the time that people are in its most vulnerable state, homeless or something else. So what we're trying to do to make space for people to talk about their experiences. As Gabriel Maté, our guru in harm reduction, said, is like not why the addiction, but why the pain. So that's like our mantra. We have to think about it. We're not thinking about why did you do this? Like, what's the reason for this behavior? And can we help you move from that? Can we gain some resources for you to use instead of using this? Yes, and also the thing that we have been doing, we have been rebuilding the system around the homelessness in a really short time. And my, who I am, lays off. Yeah, who I'm covering for now has like done so much in the years that she was working and in my position now, and that is amazing what has done in this little time. But we still have to try to move further, and we have to gain access through users' opinion, because they are the specialists, and we have to acknowledge that. And then we also have to have the talk with the community, because the community has to go there with us. There's not enough that the staff is willing to go there, or the politic of Reykjavík municipality is ready to go there. We have to have the whole community with us. So we have like an outreach team to our families, to our friends. We're the ones that you don't want to invite to dinner parties, because we're always trying to do something to talk about this status. But we have to correct people when they're wrong, and we have to be brave enough to take the talk that sometimes there is a prejudice. Sometimes it is something that you think that maybe isn't right. What can we help you to understand? So we're not only servicing the homeless sector, we're always servicing the whole community as well, I think. So in that time, I think I have it all.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, all of you. Actually, it's really, your presentations really enriched, I think, the content of this meeting, and it's so important. I mean, talking from the with the hat of the academic here, it's so important to have people from the field talking about the real stuff. Sophia, again, I mean, raised very important issues, and I think what she mentioned about the collaboration, the need for collaborating between services, is the perfect example of the Marisa project. The complex needs, circuit of services, the need to communicate with people from different services. What I heard in all actually presentations was this notion of empowering people, and it was really nice to hear that, seeing the bright side and empowering and giving the power to people. I don't know how you want to do it. I mean, we have 15 minutes left, but I have an awful lot of questions, and I suppose you may have questions. So I would like to open up the discussion to the audience, either this audience, or I don't know if you can take questions from the online. No, we can't. Sorry. Okay. Not even written. Why? Good. Anyway. Does anybody have any question or any remark or anything that would like to direct to the panelists? Anand. Yeah. I was asked to repeat the question. Do I still need to do that? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So yeah.
This is for Sophia. From your point of view, what is the best take on explaining neighborhoods why certain services should be there, and what the needs are of users they may not know, and explain to them that those needs do exist and need to be catered to? What is the way to take on to this subject? What is
the way to take on?
The way to convince
to
start a dialogue with neighborhoods that harm reduction services are needed, that certain facilities are needed for people who are living in a homeless style, who may be using substances, and that they have these needs. How to explain that to people who do not have those needs, and that is also part of society.
How do you explain these needs to people? Just repeating for purpose, to people who don't have these needs, and how do you explain in the neighborhood or the other people that are involved?
Reykjavík has gone through the way to have like a neighbor meetings, that you have to have like the acknowledgement of the neighborhood, something has to be approved to be in the neighborhood. And that's something sometimes really good to have the talk, but I think that the main thing that we're having a discussion, and we're acknowledging also their feelings, the neighbors' feelings, because I have been in that place with 10 years ago or something, when I wasn't a harm reductionist. I have been in that place, and I understand the feelings that you have when you're afraid of something, when you have been giving the descriptions your whole life about something, and then it's like a gate opening when you get the information about it. But the thing that we're doing is on the quiet notes, we're just describing why. Often it is regarding a family life, like the struggles between putting down like housing or something in a family neighborhood. And then we're describing these people have always been in your neighborhood. They just haven't had the housing before. And by allowing them to have housing, that improves your life as well. And that allows us to help them better and support them better. And as we are doing that, we are supporting the community better. Sometimes it comes the discussion about needles and like a harm reduction, things regarding needles, and then we're talking about that, and Konukot also knows about that, the discussion about that. But then we have the answers. We have needle boxes. We have this. If you have concerns about that, and if you see something, just call us. Just we'll be there. So we're trying to like open the talk. I guess I'm just trying to say that. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask. I mean, relating maybe to Anat's question. I mean, what do you see? I mean, that goes to all of you. The biggest challenges in your work, and how do you inform your work? I mean, you're dealing with very specific issues and very complex issues. So, what do you see as being the biggest challenges in your work, and how do you plan or already inform your work with the population you're dealing with? And that goes to everyone. Yeah, Kristín.
Well, I think that I mean, there has been a very important shift with Reykjavík turning to harm reduction in 2016 or
Something about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Or maybe not formally.
No, I think
later.
it was 2018 or something.
Yes,
that was formally, yeah.
But the word somehow appeared in 2016. So I mean, there's a lot of things happening. But what I think is important is more education. And also we talked a little bit about education and psychologists and in this morning, and you know the psychology education at the university it's a very medicalized version of psychology, and I mean we know how social determinants of health work, and we know this connection, this strong connection of social factors to our health, and especially trauma and addiction. But somehow we have all of these blind spots, ignoring this knowledge. And even in the social work department at the university, they are teaching about substance use. And you know, I had a look at the main book, and it's all about substances and not about social work related factors in with substance use. So it's this old dilemma of being scientific slash denying social factors. So it's there's a great lack of I would say critical thinking about the whole field in the education system, and so that's why people are getting. I mean, like Soffía was saying, there's a lot of people working in this field because they really want to help and make important work in the lives of these people. But I think we can do much better in the education field, and I also mentioned before the counselors, which is not doesn't have the standard of the right standard of education for people working in that's health then. But there's also this shift, is it health or is it social work? Is it that's also always harming the coherent work that has to be done with this group.
Yeah, I think about the difficulties in my job and the challenges are maybe regarding, like when we're talking about violence, that we as a society say that we do not tolerate violence. But do we tolerate it against certain groups of people? Do we just turn the blind eye when we are analyzed to that? And if our answer to the question is no, we do not tolerate any types of violence, then we do not tolerate it for women experiencing homelessness, women who use substances. It is just no. It's just no, but it's accepted. So I think that is one of the challenges, that dealing with like the stigmatizations and also this I think looking for the word. Yeah, the argument that users are getting when they're not qualified to some services. If I am getting frustrated hearing about it, I can't imagine how the users are feeling. And we're trying to regain trust, but the barriers aren't helping us, because sometimes people just don't get the difference between the municipality and the state. So if we are saying no, they can move their anger to the state. So that's not helping any of us. And the message is, when they're saying you're not qualified to this service, you're saying to the users you're not qualified. And how do you feel when someone says to you you're not qualified? You do not feel well. Where's the empowerment in that? So I think that is like what we have to. I heard one of the questions like earlier in the latest panel that was like, why aren't we like sculpturing the services through the users that apply for it, instead of the users have to sculpture themselves inside of the service? And I think that is a statement, and we have to be a part of it. We cannot always try and say, yeah, the state doesn't work as we want. We have to take some responsibility there as well. We have to be the cliche, we have to be the change. So that's yeah. So I think that's just like the main barriers and the difficulties that we're experiencing.
Yes, as we mentioned many times today, I think education among professionals, that's our greatest challenge, yeah, in Konukot, because as Kristín was talking about, it's cherry-picking problems and trying to deal with one at a time, when you need to look at the holistic picture, that trauma, drug use problems and violence, it's all related. So yeah, you can't fix one without the other, and the professionals in this are often the problem, because they're not updating their information, and yeah, and also this group just is always it forgets to include them in changes, like we saw with Strætó and COVID, and you're supposed to be isolated, or and you have no place to go, and they didn't think of that, and yeah, so small things all around that they're always forgotten.
Thank you. Well, putting forth the need to, for education is a really courageous thing, to admit that, we need more education and we need to change ourselves in order to help people change. I think it's a really courageous standpoint. We have 1 minute left. Does anybody want to? Yes, please.
I think that my name is Benna. I'm the director of the house.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons that we're getting a lot better at it is talking together as professionals of the users not having to tell their story over and over and over again, because that's also a very frustrating factor. Is that I go to a doctor and I tell them what's wrong, and he tells me to go somewhere else, and I have to repeat everything again.
Correct.
So you're continuously reliving your trauma, your experiences, you're getting frustrated, and we're getting better at talking together between the systems, calling ahead and giving information and trying to limit the limit the annoyance to the users and try to kind of be informed when we're helping with the services. But I think sometimes you do end up
Exactly. You're pointing out the need for collaboration in order to eliminate the re-experiencing of the narratives and whatever that may come bring with it. Retelling the story, of the victims, retelling their stories all over again. So collaborating, with each other saves time, saves energy, saves psychic energy. Yeah. Very important thing. Okay. I think this brings us to the end of this panel. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank everybody for their contribution.